The stars had forgotten humanity. Once, humans had stretched across the void, their colonies thriving on distant worlds, but the Zalnari Empire had come, their war machines descending like a storm. Terra burned, the colonies fell, billions were enslaved or slaughtered, their voices silenced beneath alien rule. The Zalnari believed the war was over. They believed humanity was broken. They were wrong. They had left Hundra alive. The rise from ashes. Hundra had once been a soldier, a warrior forged in battle. She had stood on the front lines when Terra Nova fell, watching her people fight and die. She had fought until her blade was slick with alien blood, until her arms ached, until there was nothing left to fight for. Then, they left her for dead. She lay in the ruins of her home, the shattered remains of her world around her. Her body was broken, but her spirit remained unyielding. As she crawled from the ashes, something inside her hardened. The Zalnari thought they had wiped out the last ember of human defiance. Instead, they had created a firestorm. She swore an oath upon the bones of her world. I will make them remember humanity. A warrior forged in fire, alone, she became a shadow among the stars. She scavenged weapons from the dead, stole Zalnari technology, and learned their ways. She became their nightmare. Her first kill was a Zalnari officer. His throat slit in the dead of night. The next was a patrol ship, its crew found scattered across the void. Then she struck a labor camp, freeing hundreds of human prisoners. The message spread like wildfire. The Zalnari whispered her name now. Hundra, the Unbroken. The slaves called her something else. Hope. The birth of the rebellion. She could not fight this war alone. On the frozen wastelands of Rothka, she found the shattered remnants of humanity's once proud fleet, pilots without ships, soldiers without weapons, survivors without purpose. They had lost everything. They had nothing left to fight for. But Hundra stood before them, her blade gleaming like the dying star it was forged from. You think this war is over? She said. You think we are beaten? Silence. You are still breathing, she growled. That means we are not finished. A murmur. We are human, and we do not kneel. A roar. They followed her that day, not because she was the strongest, not because she had weapons, but because she believed. And belief, in the heart of the broken, is the most dangerous thing in the universe. War across the stars. They started small, stealing supplies, hijacking warships, turning Zalnari weapons against them. They fought from the shadows, striking like ghosts. The Empire's warlords sent fleets to crush them, but Hundra was always 2 steps ahead. With each battle, their numbers grew. Humanity was no longer running. Humanity was rising. And the Empire was afraid. The Zalnari's final mistake. Desperate to end the rebellion, the Zalnari made one final, brutal move. They gathered their entire armada and set course for the last human stronghold, the last beacon of resistance in the galaxy. If they succeeded, humanity would be wiped from existence. Hundra stood before her warriors, the final battle upon them. She looked at their faces, scarred, battle-worn, but unbroken. This is where we make our stand, she said, not for vengeance, not for hatred. She raised her blade to the burning sky. We fight because we are human, because no empire, no army, no god among the stars will ever take our spirit. A cry rose among them. And as the Zalnari fleet descended, humanity charged. The final battle. The sky burned as war erupted. Zalnari warships rained fire upon the last human city, their massive dreadnoughts blotting out the stars. But humanity had something more powerful than ships. They had will. They fought like demons, their ragtag fleet maneuvering through the chaos, striking with precision and fury. They did not need to outgun the Empire, they only needed to outfight them. Hundra led the assault, cutting through Zalnari warriors like a force of nature. Her blade, forged in the heart of a dying star, tore through their ranks. She reached the warlord's command ship, a fortress in the sky. Alone, She stormed its halls. At the bridge, the last Salnari warlord stood waiting. "You cannot win," he sneered. "Your people are doomed." Hundra wiped blood from her face, a fire burning in her eyes. "You still don't understand, do you?" She stepped forward, the weight of humanity behind her. "We are not doomed, we are inevitable." And with a single, final strike, she ended him. A future reclaimed, the Zalnari fleet crumbled, their empire, built on fear, collapsed. Humanity, once a dying ember, became a roaring inferno. As the first human flag was raised over the ruins of the Zalnari capital, a message was sent across the stars. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break. Humanity rises. And at the heart of it all stood Hundra. Not as a warrior. Not as a soldier. But as a legend. Because no matter how dark the night, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity always finds a way to rise. The stars burned red with war. For centuries, the Zalnari Empire had ruled the galaxy with ruthless efficiency, crushing any race that dared to resist. Humanity had fought, as they always did, but against the overwhelming might of the Empire, their worlds had fallen, one by one. Terra was a graveyard, the colonies burned, the survivors were shackled and sent to toil in alien mines, their spirits broken under the weight of slavery. But they had forgotten one thing: humanity never surrenders. And they had made a fatal mistake. They had left Hundra alive. The survivor, Hundra, awoke beneath the rubble of her shattered homeworld, her body broken, her breath shallow, the screams of the dying still echoed in her mind. The Empire had come, their warships blotting out the sky, their warriors slaughtering without mercy. She had fought, she had bled, and she had lost. Or so they thought. Crawling from the ruins, she swore a single oath. "I will make them pay." With nothing but tattered rags and a heart filled with fire, she vanished into the void, a ghost among the stars. The weapon of vengeance. For years, Hundra honed her skills, learning the ways of the Zalnari, studying their weaknesses. She scavenged weapons from the dead, stole technology from the enemy, and forged a blade in the heart of a dying star, a weapon that would cut through the Empire like fire through dry grass. She was no longer just a soldier. She was vengeance. Her first strike was small, an outpost on the edge of the Empire. She moved like a shadow, her blade carving through Zalnari guards with ruthless precision. She freed the human prisoners, leaving only one survivor to spread the message. The name Hundra became a whisper in the dark. A few more strikes, and she became a myth. And then the humans rose. The rebellion ignites. Word of her victories spread like wildfire. The broken, scattered remnants of humanity saw her as a beacon of hope. Slaves turned against their masters. Captured soldiers took up arms once more. A rebellion, once thought impossible, began to take shape. The Zalnari tried to silence it. They sent warships to crush the uprising before it could grow. But Hundra had learned their ways. She fought like no warrior they had ever faced. She did not meet them in open battle. She struck from the shadows, tearing through their supply lines, turning their own weapons against them. She was everywhere and nowhere. The Empire, vast and arrogant, struggled against an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. For the first time in centuries, the Zalnari knew fear. The war turns, the rebellion swelled. Humanity's allies, races once too afraid to resist, saw the tide shifting and joined the fight. Hundra led the charge, her name now more than just a whisper, it was a roar. Her forces stormed Zalnari strongholds, tearing down their banners, freeing their prisoners, reclaiming the stars one battle at a time. But the Empire was not beaten yet. In desperation, the Zalnari warlords devised one final plan: to destroy humanity completely. Their fleets gathered for a single, devastating assault on the last human stronghold. If they succeeded, it would mean the end. Hundra knew what was at stake. She stood before her people, battle-worn but unbowed. "We have fought, we have bled, and we have endured," she told them. "They think they can break us, they think they can end us, but they have forgotten who we are." She raised her blade to the heavens. "We are humanity, and today, we remind them why you never count us out." The final battle. The Zalnari fleet descended like a storm, their warships darkened the sky, their weapons burning with the fury of a dying empire. Hundra and her warriors met them head-on. The battle raged across the void, explosions tearing through the blackness, fighters weaving through the chaos, battleships locked in brutal combat. On the ground, the Zalnari marched toward the last human city, their forces overwhelming. And Hundra charged. She cut through them like wildfire, her blade singing through the air, carving a path through the enemy ranks. Soldiers followed her, inspired by the unstoppable force that she had become. At the heart of the battlefield, she faced the last Zalnari warlord, the monster who had led the destruction of her world. "You are strong," he growled, towering over her, "but you are alone." Hundra smirked, blood running down her face. "You still don't understand, do you?" She stepped aside, revealing the thousands of warriors behind her. "I was never alone." With a single, decisive strike, she ended him. The Zalnari army shattered. Their warships, leaderless and broken, fell back. The empire, built on fear and oppression, collapsed. The dawn of a new era. As the dust settled, Hundra stood at the top of the ruined citadel, looking out over the battlefield. Humanity had won. Not because of their weapons. Not because of their numbers. But because of their spirit. Because when the universe had tried to crush them, when all hope had seemed lost, humanity had refused to kneel. Hundra turned to her people, their faces filled with hope, with fire, with the knowledge that they had defied fate itself. "What now?" Rourke, her oldest friend, asked. Hundra gazed at the endless sky, a faint smile on her lips. "Now," she said, "we build." And across the stars, the legend of Hundra the Unbroken spread. Because no matter how dark the night, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity always rises. The Zalnari Empire had ruled the stars for centuries, its iron grip crushing entire civilizations beneath its scaled fists. Humanity was supposed to be no different, a minor species, fragile and insignificant, doomed to serve or die. But the Zalnari made one fatal mistake. They underestimated Hundra. The ashes of defeat. When Terra Nova fell, Hundra had been left for dead among the ruins. She had watched her people dragged away in chains, their cities reduced to smoking craters, but she did not die. Crawling from the rubble, she swore a single oath: humanity will rise, and I will make the stars remember our name. Alone, she waged a silent war, moving through the shadows of occupied space. She became a ghost, striking from nowhere, leaving destruction in her wake. One by one, she freed prisoners, sabotaged supply lines, and sent a message across the galaxy: humanity was not broken, it was rising. Yet vengeance alone would not free them. She needed an army. The birth of the rebellion. On the frozen wastelands of Rothka, she found the scattered remnants of the human fleet, broken, starving survivors who had lost all hope. They had heard her name, but when they saw her, tattered, bloodied, alone, they did not believe she could lead them. "I don't need you to believe," she told them. "I just need you to fight." And they did. Under her command, they became more than survivors, they became warriors. Their ships were stolen, their weapons scavenged, their fleet a patchwork of barely functioning machines, but what they lacked in strength, they made up for in sheer human defiance. Their first victory was a single outpost, their second, a prison ship, then an entire supply convoy. With every battle, their legend grew. The Zalnari whispered her name in fear. Hundra, the starborn phoenix, the warrior who had risen from the ashes. The Empire strikes back. The Zalnari warlords, enraged by her defiance, unleashed a brutal campaign. They burned rebel-held worlds, executed entire colonies, and declared that for every attack, 1,000 humans would die. Fear spread like wildfire. Hundra gathered her commanders, their faces grim. "They want us to stop fighting," she said. "But tell me, when has humanity ever stopped?" Silence fell. Then Captain Rourke, her second in command, rose to his feet. "Never." One by one, the others followed. "Never. Never. Never." And so, they fought on. The turning point. Humanity could not match the Zalnari in firepower. Their fleet was outnumbered 10 to 1, but Hundra knew something the warlords did not. Humanity does not fight fair. They turned space itself into a weapon. They hijacked Zalnari warships, turned asteroids into traps, unleashed EMP storms that crippled entire fleets. They struck where the enemy was weakest, never where they were expected. The Empire, built on brute force, struggled against an enemy that refused to stand still. Slowly, the tide turned. One by one, the occupied worlds rose in defiance. Slaves became soldiers. Fear turned to fury. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The final battle. Desperate, the Zalnari warlords launched one last assault, a full-scale invasion of Earth itself. Hundra knew this was the moment. With every last ship, every last warrior, she met them in battle over humanity's homeworld. The Zalnari fleet blotted out the stars, their warships massive, their weapons devastating. But Hundra had something they did not. Human will. "We are not the strongest," she told her people. "We are not the fastest, but we are the most damn stubborn species in the universe. And today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every human world, every colony, every child who deserves to grow up free." Her words lit a fire that no fleet could extinguish. The battle was chaos, ships exploding, fire raining from the sky, soldiers fighting in the ruins of cities. The Zalnari believed they had already won. Then Hundra boarded their flagship. She cut through their warriors, her blade forged in the heart of a dying star, leaving only silence in her wake. At the heart of the ship, she met the last warlord, a towering beast of scales and arrogance. "You are alone," he sneered. Hundra grinned. "No, I am humanity." And with a single strike, she ended him. The rise of a new era. With their warlord dead, the Zalnari fell into chaos. Their empire, built on fear, crumbled. Their fleet scattered. The stars belonged to humanity now. As the first human flag was raised over the ruins of the Zalnari capital, a message was sent across the galaxy. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break. Humanity rises. And at the heart of it all, stood Hundra. She had started this war as a soldier. She ended it as something far greater, a legend. And the universe would never forget. Because no matter how dark the night, humanity always finds a way to rise. The Zalnari Empire had ruled for centuries, crushing every uprising with swift brutality. To them, humans were nothing more than an annoyance, another weak species too stubborn to know when it was beaten. But after the fall of Valor, the Empire's heart, everything changed. Hundra's name now echoed across the galaxy, whispered in both awe and terror, to the oppressed. She was the starborn phoenix, the warrior who had risen from the ashes. To the Zalnari, she was a nightmare made flesh, the symbol of an enemy they could no longer ignore. But victory over Valor was only the beginning. The Empire strikes back. The Zalnari response was swift. Furious at the death of their emperor, their surviving warlords rallied their forces, launching brutal counterattacks against human-held worlds. Planets liberated by Hundra's rebellion were razed to the ground. Refugees flooded into the human fleet, desperate and starving. Supplies ran low, morale wavered. The dream of freedom, so close, now seemed to slip away. Hundra, standing on the bridge of her flagship the Indomitable, watched as reports of Zalnari atrocities filled the holoscreens. Slaughtered civilians. Entire cities burned as warnings. The Empire was trying to break them before they could rise any further. But Hundra had not come this far to be broken. We knew this wouldn't be easy, she told her commanders. We knew they would come for us. But let me ask you this, are we going to stop? The silence was heavy. Then Rourke, the grizzled fleet captain who had stood by her side since the first battle, stepped forward. Hell no. One by one, the others echoed the words, fists clenched, jaws set. Hundra nodded. Then we take the fight to them. Turning the tide. Humanity could not outgun the Zalnari. Their warships were older, their numbers smaller. If they fought conventionally, they would lose. So they fought like humans. They struck fast, using guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and hit-and-run assaults on enemy supply lines. They disrupted communication networks, sabotaged war factories, and turned the very civilians the Empire had tried to break into the fuel of the rebellion. The Zalnari had expected to face an army. Instead, they faced a ghost war, an enemy that never fought where they were expected, that never stayed still, that never gave them a clear target. Hundra herself became the spearhead of these strikes, leading her warriors into the heart of enemy strongholds, cutting down commanders, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Zalnari war machine, built for large-scale planetary conquests, struggled against this new kind of warfare. It was not a war of brute force, it was a war of endurance, intelligence, and sheer human defiance. The breaking point. After months of relentless attacks, the Zalnari warlords made one final gamble. They gathered their remaining forces for an all-out strike against Earth, hoping to wipe out humanity's homeworld once and for all. Hundra knew she could not allow that to happen. She assembled the largest fleet humanity had ever mustered, stolen Zalnari warships, old Terran cruisers, and even civilian freighters modified for combat. It was a desperate force, outnumbered and outmatched. But it was enough. As the Zalnari armada approached Earth, Hundra and her fleet struck first. Using a mix of stealth tactics and sheer ferocity, they disrupted the enemy formation, forcing the Empire's warships into chaotic, close-range combat, exactly where human ingenuity and adaptability thrived. Hundra herself led a boarding party onto the enemy command ship, the Tyrant's Wrath, where the last great warlord of the Zalnari stood waiting. I do not fear you, human, he snarled as she entered his throne room, his massive frame towering over her. You should, she replied. The battle was brutal, the warlord was stronger, his claws like razors, his blows enough to shatter steel, but Hundra was faster, smarter, more determined. She fought with every ounce of fury and defiance that humanity had left. Every strike was for the fallen. Every wound she took was a reminder of why she could not fail. And in the end, as the warlord fell to his knees, gasping his last breath, he finally understood. You, humans, never stop. Hundra wiped the blood from her blade. No, we don't. With his death, the last true leader of the Zalnari Empire was gone. The dawn of a new era, the remnants of the Zalnari forces, leaderless and broken, scattered. Some fled to the edges of the galaxy, others surrendered, their will to fight shattered by the relentless human advance. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was free from their rule. Humanity, once thought weak, had defied the greatest empire the stars had ever known. They had proven that it was not technology or sheer strength that determined the fate of a species. It was will, it was resilience, it was the refusal to kneel. As the war ended, Hundra stood atop the ruins of the Zalnari capital, looking at the stars above. They had won. But she knew the fight was never truly over. What's next? Rourke asked her. Hundra smiled. We rebuild, we protect, and if the universe ever tries to take our freedom again. She clenched her fist. We remind them why you never count humanity out. And so, the legend of Hundra, the starborn phoenix, lived on not just as the warrior who had avenged her people, but as the leader who had forged humanity's future among the stars. Because no matter how dark the night, no matter how hopeless the battle, humanity rises. The stars burned cold above the wreckage of humanity's last stronghold. Smoke and fire rose from the ruins of Terra Nova, its once thriving cities reduced to little more than cinders beneath the boots of the Zalnari Empire. The conquerors, towering reptilian warlords, had declared humanity finished, a species too weak to survive among the stars. They were wrong. From the shadows of defeat, Hundra emerged, a warrior forged in the crucible of suffering. She had watched her home burn, had been left for dead in the wastelands of Zalnari occupation, but she had not perished. Instead, she had sharpened her rage into a blade, her despair into determination. The Zalnari believed they had broken her people. Hundra would prove them wrong. The rise of a legend. She spent years moving through the fringes of occupied space, striking at supply lines, ambushing patrols, and rescuing enslaved humans from labor camps. Alone, she was a specter of vengeance, silent, deadly, and relentless, but she knew vengeance alone would not free humanity. It was in the frozen wastes of Rothka that she found her first real allies, broken remnants of the old human fleet, survivors who had refused to surrender. Their leader, a grizzled captain named Rourke, saw in Hundra something more than just a warrior. He saw a beacon of hope. "You fight like a ghost," he told her after she single-handedly dismantled an entire Zalnari outpost. "But ghosts don't win wars. Leaders do." Hundra had never seen herself as a leader, but when she looked into the eyes of the desperate men and women around her, she knew they needed more than a soldier. They needed a reason to believe. So she gave them one. The spark of rebellion. Through stolen ships and captured weapons, Hundra's forces grew. What had started as a whisper in the dark became a wildfire, spreading across the occupied colonies. Humanity was not finished, it was rising. Each battle turned slaves into soldiers, each victory fueling a movement that the Zalnari had thought impossible. Hundra's name became a legend, spoken in hushed, reverent tones. The starborn phoenix. They called her the warrior who had risen from the ashes of annihilation. But legends alone would not free Earth. To break the chains of their oppressors, Hundra knew she had to strike at the heart of the empire itself. And so, she set her sights on Karth, the Zalnari capital world. The final battle. The fleet she commanded was a ragtag force of stolen warships, outdated cruisers, and repurposed freighters, held together by nothing but sheer determination. Against them stood the full might of the Zalnari armada, thousands of warships, battle stations, and an emperor who believed humanity too weak to challenge him. When Hundra's fleet dropped from warp, the Zalnari scoffed. It was a massacre waiting to happen. And then Hundra's voice rang across the battlefield. "Humanity has never been the strongest. We have never been the fastest. But we have one thing no empire, no tyrant, no war machine has ever been able to destroy: our will. You thought you had crushed us, but we are still here, and we will never kneel." With that, she led the charge. Blazing through enemy lines, her forces fought like demons, driven by the sheer fury of a species refusing to die. Outgunned and outnumbered, they carved through the enemy fleet like a storm, every ship lost fueling the unrelenting advance. Hundra herself boarded the Emperor's flagship, cutting down his guards with the blade forged in the heart of a dying star. When she reached the throne room, the Zalnari Emperor sneered. "You cannot win. Your kind is weak." Hundra wiped the blood from her blade and leveled her gaze at him. "Then why are you afraid?" With one final strike, she ended him. A future reclaimed. The death of the Emperor shattered the Zalnari forces. Their empire, built on fear, collapsed in the face of humanity's defiance. One by one, the occupied worlds broke free. And at the heart of it all stood Hundra. She had started as a lone warrior, driven by vengeance, but in the end, she had become something far greater, a symbol of humanity's unbreakable spirit. As the first human flag was raised over Karth, A message spread across the stars. Humanity does not break. Humanity does not bow. Humanity rises. And so, the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget: you never count humanity out.